What's up everybody? So in today's video we have to talk about the Toyota Supra once again, because in all honesty this is the first time a sports car has been introduced into the market with so much hate around it. I just want to kind of wrap my brain around why is everybody absolutely hating on the new Supra. Hasn't even hit the dealerships yet. We haven't even really gotten to drive it and see what it has to offer, and yet there's like a split. Half the people are pumped for it. I'm one of those people. I'm pumped for it. I'm planning to buy it. But then the other half just absolutely hate this new car. So we're gonna hop in the GTR because it's like 40 degrees outside and I'm getting a little chilly. But we're gonna talk about why everybody is hating the car, and hopefully some people can just kind of open their minds just a little bit and realize why Toyota has made the decisions that they've made with this new car. So then to start it all off, what is the biggest thing that people are hating about the new car? It seems like the biggest thing is the fact that it's not 100% a Toyota. In all honesty, it really is a BMW Supra. BMW is making the engine for it. On top of that, the steering wheel, the entire infotainment setup is straight out of BMW. So there's a lot of collaboration between Toyota and BMW for this car. It's not purely a Toyota Supra. Another thing a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of is the fact that as of now there's no manual option. I totally agree it needs to have a manual transmission. That's going to be a much better transmission for that car. The 8-speed automatic is going to be a great transmission, but they really got to make it into a manual. But the biggest thing definitely is the fact that it's got a lot of BMW in it. A lot of people are saying that it's just not a Toyota anymore, which definitely makes sense. It's a BMW inline 6-cylinder engine versus like a new generation of the original 2JZ from the A90 Supra. So it's not an original straight up Toyota. In all honesty, looking at it from a business perspective, they only had 3 options for this new car. The first option is what we have, a joint collaboration between 2 car companies. We get an affordable car, it's around $50,000. We get quite a lot of power, like 325 and 365 horsepower and torque, 0 to 60 is 4.1 seconds, 50-50 weight distribution. So the numbers stack up to where it actually is a good car, it's affordable, and it is here. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is the dream of the FT1, making it to the real world, but never ever happening. So we could dream about having a Supra and it never happening, or we could get this joint collaboration Supra that we do have. Option number 3 is Toyota doing every single thing in-house, creating the 3JZ engine, producing this Supra 100% from Toyota. Then the problem is it's going to be a $100,000 car with maybe 400 horsepower, and the thing is, it simply is not going to sell. Now, why do I say it's not going to sell? Because it's not going to sell if it's a $100,000 car. Everyone's going to now complain that it's too expensive for the horsepower it's going to have. If they design it to be a GTR competitor, they're going to have to spend a lot more money on it and create it to be some crazy 500-600 horsepower car now, which means even more cost, which means they're probably going to have to make it even more expensive. So it's just not going to work. There's always going to be something you're going to have to complain about, but I would rather complain about my new Supra having some BMW in it than complain that it doesn't even exist, or complain that I can't afford it because it's $100,000. Now, why do I say everything like that? Sports cars do not sell. That's the big problem right now. In today's market, us car enthusiasts, you and I, all you guys watching this video, we are like this big of the entire auto market of people who are buying cars. The rest of the consumers are, I need to open my window because I can't show you how big it is. We are a tiny, tiny little aspect of the automobile buyers, and the numbers back that up. I found one website online, carsalebase.com. Hopefully this is all accurate, but just looking at my own car, the Nissan GTR, this is a 2014 model year. In 2014, they sold a little over 1,400 vehicles. All the way up to 2018, they only sold 538 cars. If we look at the GTR's little brother, the 370Z, they did pretty well the first few years, selling about 10,000 units. As we got to 2015, they were closer to selling 6,000. 2017, they sold 4,600, and 2018, they only sold 3,500 cars. But then going back to Toyota, the FRS 86, around 15,000 the first few years each year. But the last 3 years with the 86 and FRS, you're talking about 6,000 cars each year. The Lexus LC, 2,500 the first year, 2,000 the second year. The Chevy Corvette, which has been such an iconic for America for a sports car, around 30,000 a year. Now those numbers, you may think those are pretty decent numbers, but looking at the Toyota sports cars, pretty low, even the Nissan ones, pretty low. But now we get to the money makers. What do car companies actually make money selling? Unfortunately for us car people, it's the boring cars. The Toyota Camry, they consistently sell about 400,000 a year. Now 400,000, if we go back to the FRS, we were at about 6,000. That is such an astronomical difference. It doesn't make any sense for them to make the Toyota 86. It doesn't make any sense. The amount of money they're pulling in with Camrys, the Toyota RAV4, you're looking at 400,000 vehicles. The Honda CR-V, almost 400,000 a year. The Honda Civic, 350,000 a year. So for Toyota to actually green light the okay to produce a sports car in today's market when crossovers and sedans are actually making money, that's a really, really big deal. And as a car enthusiast, we kind of have to take what we can get. Luckily enough, Nissan has been for the last decade producing the 370 and the GTR for the car people, even though that's this much of their sales. You know, the Nissan Rogue, the Sentra, the Maxima, those are money makers selling by the 300,000 a year versus 6,000 sports cars a year. So from Toyota's perspective, why in the world did they work with BMW? It is because of cost. If they produced their own in-house engine, it would be so much more money to produce this car. They'd have to charge you 100 grand for this thing. It didn't make any sense for them to do it themselves. And when you look at Toyota, they don't have anything that's performance oriented. They have a V8 for their trucks. They got a V6 for a lot of their normal cars, and they have 1 or 2 4-cylinders and then some hybrids. They don't necessarily have any type of performance engine. So to develop one, especially taking the 2JZ, a lot of people said they should just stick that engine in the new car. That's a 30-year-old engine. You simply cannot do that. It doesn't comply with any of the modern laws, safety, emissions, all that kind of stuff that they have to follow. You know, they have to follow certain rules to produce a car. So a 2JZ engine would never work. To redo that engine to create, you know, a 3JZ, the new engine, you're talking so much money, and it would translate into a very expensive car. And honestly, I bet you Toyota looked at Honda before they really went all out for this new Supra. Look at Honda with the new NSX. That was a flop. They wasted so much money on that car and they didn't sell at all. It was horrible for Honda. It was a major flop. That car was about $200,000. Everything was Honda. They developed it, they designed it, they did so much to it. But then you're left with a $200,000 car that isn't as fun to drive as cars in its class, like a Lamborghini Huracan or a McLaren 570S. And sales showed, you know, within a few months, they were all going for 150, 130 grand. They were losing value tremendously. They were just sitting on dealerships' floors. But Honda had a big disaster with that car because they developed every single thing in-house. They tried to shoot for the moon with it, and it didn't work. Nobody wanted a supercar priced NSX. They wanted maybe a $130,000 car to compete with the GTR. For Toyota, they knew if they did that, make everything in-house, they're gonna have to charge an arm and a leg, and it's not gonna sell. What did we get with the new Supra? It has an inline 6 with a turbo. That's something very iconic that the Supra name has. Toyota doesn't have any inline 6s, so if they put in a naturally aspirated V6, we'd hate it because that would suck. That's not what we want. There's no potential with that kind of engine. But partnering with BMW, they actually kind of developed the engine together, so it's not just like picking the engine right out of BMW's production line and just sticking it in their car. They kind of developed it together, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Toyota quality in the engine, which I hope. But they're giving us now an inline 6 with a turbo on it, which means there's potential for tuning. It's already pretty quick out of the box, so if you tune it and do bolt-ons, you're talking about a 400 wheel horsepower car. So that's something that we need to look at the plus side. Now BMW, they've had these inline 6s forever, and it is a pretty good engine for performance, so at least they worked with a company that had the right layout of an engine for the new car. And doing that saved them a lot of money. They didn't really have to spend money on developing the powertrain for the car. It's as if car companies have never done this before. Look at the new Mustang and Camaro. Those are probably the two biggest rival cars in our country. They each have the exact same 10-speed automatic transmission. And from what I've heard, they developed it together. So the two biggest competitors using the same transmission. And also, we're living in a world where your American, Chevrolet pickup truck is built in Mexico when your Toyota pickup truck is built in America. So there's a lot of new things in today's car market that make it so much different than back in the 90s. So then back to the Supra, partnering with BMW was a pretty smart decision to save money. That did also mean that they used a lot of the inside from BMW. The entire infotainment setup, the climate control radio, the steering wheel is right out of a Beamer. But all that goes into cost cutting to make this car affordable, actually hit the production line and hit the dealerships, and still giving you all the performance. So at the end of the day, I think we kind of have to just take what we can get. In today's market, for Toyota to unveil a new sports car, that's a really, really big deal, especially when looking at the sales numbers of what actually sells. So that's pretty awesome that Toyota is introducing this new car. But if everybody keeps hating it and ripping it apart before it even gets to dealerships, do you think Honda's going to come out with another S2000 or Mazda coming out with a new RX-9 or whatever? Probably not. They're going to look at this and say, you know what, it's not worth spending all this money on a car that isn't going to even make us money to just get roasted by people hating this car. So I think that is kind of everything I wanted to say. It's just baffling how many people already just hate this new car so much. And again, I'm not trying to be some fanboy defending Toyota, thinking that they are the greatest people in the world and making the greatest car in the world. But from a business perspective, it didn't make sense for them to create an in-house engine and create this car from scratch. The car would be too expensive. It wouldn't have the performance to back it up. It already isn't going to have the sales to make them a lot of money. Just the simple fact is sports cars do not sell. So Toyota, in order to actually do this project, they had to do it in a cost-effective way. I think they chose the best route because if we look back at the beginning of today's video, the three options, we either don't have any car and we can just dream about an FT1 maybe one day coming to life. We can have a very, very expensive, underpowered Toyota Supra when you can buy a GTR or a used Aston Martin or an F-Type for the same money that would destroy in every performance way. Or the third way is to have what we have, a joint partnership, a Toyota Supra sports car, a new sports car in today's market that does have shared parts. I would take the car that I can actually buy and that we can attain and see. That is the better route. So that I think wraps up today's video, kind of a mini rant on it. Again, not defending the car, thinking it's perfect, but as a car enthusiast, as a car person in this world where we are the tiny, tiny percentage of car buyers, take what we can get. We got a new sports car hitting the market. That can only mean good things. If we buy it brand new, Toyota's going to see it selling. If we tell the dealers that we want this in a manual, if those people tell the dealers, I'll buy it again if it has a manual, that is going to get to corporate to where they say, all right, let's pop in a manual. Our customers want this car. Just commenting on YouTube, if you're not even going to buy this car, that's not really going to say much because you're not the person buying the car. The people putting their money where their mouth is, showing Toyota, I'm about to buy this car, those are the people that they're going to listen to. So if we buy it and we tell them we want a manual, we'll get it. If we tell them we want an in-house engine, that probably won't happen just because that's a lot of money to do. But if they sell out like crazy and keep selling, maybe down the road they'll say, all right, let's develop our own performance engine. We'll redo the 86, we'll create an MR2, we'll have the Supra, all using a similar engine and build a performance brand and maybe even make performance sedans. So who knows what it could do, but the whole thing to keep in mind is with a new sports car in the world, that is a good thing. So we need to build it up. Hopefully it's a great car. If it's not a good car, we'll let them know, but hopefully it's a great car. I think it really will be. So that is it for today's video. Just I wanted to rant that a little bit and get it off my chest. I am excited for the new car. I know a lot of you are. For those of you who hate it for every single reason, I don't think Toyota could have ever pleased you because the only viable options for them to do is what they did or does not make it at all. And obviously we would rather have a sports car than not. So anyways, that is it for today's video. Give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys next video.